get in. Close the door gently tonight. Where to? We're going to Rio, but not the Rio you know. We're going back, 1976. Military dictatorship, censorship. Fear. The kind of Brazil where people disappeared, and asking questions about the disappeared could make you disappear too. Her name was Zuzu Angel. If you know fashion, Brazilian fashion, international fashion from the 1960s and 70s, you know that name. Designer. Artist. Innovator. She dressed celebrities, socialites, first ladies. Her designs were shown in New York. Paris. London. She put Brazilian fashion on the global map. But that's not why I'm telling you her story tonight. I'm telling you her story because in 1971, her son disappeared. Stuart Angel, 26 years old, the activist, opponent of Brazil's military dictatorship. He was arrested, tortured, murdered. His body was never returned to his mother. And Zuzu Angel, fashion designer, artist, woman of elegance and grace, became something else. She became a fighter. She traveled the world, gave interviews, designed clothing with hidden messages denouncing the regime. She told anyone who would listen, the Brazilian military killed my son, and they're lying about it. And then, April 14, 1976, Zuzu Angel died in a car accident. Her Volkswagen Beetle went off an overpass in Rio de Janeiro. Single car accident. No witnesses. The military said, tragic accident. Everyone else said, assassination. Tonight, we're going to Rio. We're going back to the 1970s. We're going to talk about a mother who wouldn't be silenced, and a regime that decided silence was mandatory. You ready? Good. Because this one isn't just about Zuzu Angel. It's about what it cost to speak truth under dictatorship, and whether her accident was anything but. Let me tell you about Zuzu Angel, the designer who became a threat to a dictatorship. Who was Zuzu Angel? Picture Rio de Janeiro in the 1950s. Post-war. Developing. Hungry for culture and glamour. Zuleika Angel Jones Zuzu to everyone was born in 1921 in Corvello, Minas Gerais. Daughter of a Brazilian mother and an American father. Grew up between cultures, between worlds. She moved to Rio as a young woman. Started designing clothes. Not copying Paris. Not imitating New York. Creating something new. Brazilian fashion with its own voice. Tropical colors. Bold patterns. Indigenous influences mixed with haute couture. By the 1960s, Zuzu Angel was a name. Not just in Brazil, internationally. She showed her collections in the United States, Europe. Dressed American celebrities. Brazilian elites. Joan Crawford wore her designs. American first ladies wore her designs. She was successful. Celebrated. Secure. And then 1964 happened. The military coup. 1964 April 1, 1964. The Brazilian military overthrew the democratically elected government. Claimed they were saving Brazil from communism. In reality, they were seizing power. What followed was 21 years of dictatorship, censorship, torture, disappearances. People who opposed the regime, activists, students, journalists, artists, vanished. Arrested in the night. Taken to secret detention centers. Tortured. Killed. Their families were told nothing. Bodies were rarely returned. The state denied everything. Zuzu Angel had 2 children. A daughter, Ana Cristina, and a son, Stuart. Who was Stuart Angel? Stuart Edgar Angel Jones. Born 1945. Son of Zuzu Angel and her American ex-husband. Grew up in Rio. Privileged, educated. Idealistic. By the late 1960s, Stuart was a student at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. And like many students in that era, he was political. He opposed the dictatorship. Believed in democracy. In freedom. In justice. He wasn't violent, but he was vocal. He participated in protests, distributed leaflets, organized meetings. In the eyes of the military regime, that made him a subversive, a threat. Pause. In May 1971, Stuart disappeared. May 1971, Stuart's disappearance. Stuart Angel was arrested by agents of the military dictatorship. He wasn't charged with a crime. wasn't given a trial. He was taken to a clandestine detention center, tortured. According to testimonies that emerged decades later from former military officers, from survivors, Stuart was tortured for information about other activists. He didn't give it. And sometime in June 1971, Stuart Angel died, under torture, in a military facility. He was 26 years old. His body was never returned to his family. The military claimed he'd fled the country, that he was in hiding, that he was fine. Zuzu Angel knew better. Zuzu's fight begins mothers know. Zuzu knew Stuart hadn't fled, knew he hadn't abandoned her, knew something terrible had happened. She went to authorities, demanded information. They stonewalled her. She filed complaints, hired lawyers, nothing. She went to the American embassy. Stuart was half American, held dual citizenship. Maybe the U.S. government could pressure Brazil. They tried quietly, diplomatically. It didn't work. So Zuzu did something radical. She went public. In 1971, Brazil, under full military censorship, going public was dangerous. Criticizing the regime could get you arrested, tortured, disappeared. Zuzu did it anyway. The international campaign Zuzu Angel had something most mothers of the disappeared didn't have: international connections. She traveled for fashion, knew journalists, knew celebrities, had credibility abroad. She used it. She gave interviews to American newspapers, European media. She told them, "The Brazilian military murdered my son. They're lying about it, and they're doing this to thousands of others." She designed a fashion collection 1971 called "I Sang the Blues for the Angels." The clothes had hidden messages, birds in cages, angels with broken wings, designs that looked beautiful from a distance, but carried coded denunciations of the regime. She wore these designs, showed them internationally, told their meanings to foreign press. The Brazilian military was furious. She was making them look bad on the global stage. They warned her, threatened her, tried to intimidate her. She didn't stop. 1972 to 1975. The pressure intensifies for years. Zuzu kept fighting. She met with U.S. government officials, United Nations representatives, human rights organizations. She showed them evidence, testimonies from other families, documentation of the regime's atrocities. She became one of the most visible critics of the Brazilian dictatorship internationally, and internally she became a problem. Friends warned her, family begged her to stop. She received anonymous threats. Her phone was tapped. She was followed. In 1974, she gave an interview to a British journalist. She said, on record, "If something happens to me, if I die in an accident, if I disappear, it won't be an accident. The regime will have killed me." 2 years later, she was dead. April 14, 1976. The accident Wednesday night. April 14, 1976. Zuzu Angel was driving home in her Volkswagen Beetle on the Elevado da Perimetral elevated highway in Rio de Janeiro. Around 11 p.m., her car went off the overpass, crashed. She died on impact. She was 54 years old. Police arrived, investigated. Their conclusion: single car accident. Driver lost control. No other vehicles involved. No witnesses. Tragic, but an accident. Case closed. Except the suspicions. Zuzu's family didn't believe it. Friends didn't believe it. Activists didn't believe it. Because Zuzu had predicted it. She'd said publicly, repeatedly, that if she died in an accident, it would be murder. And there were details about the crash that didn't add up. Zuzu was an experienced driver, knew that road well. Weather was clear. Road conditions were good. No mechanical failure was found in the car. The crash happened in a location that would have required deliberate action to leave the road. Witnesses years later reported seeing another car near Zuzu's Beetle that night, a car that seemed to force her off the road. But in 1976, under dictatorship, nobody was willing to say that publicly. The accident was accepted as official truth, and Zuzu Angel was buried. Her fight seemingly was over. Decades later, The truth emerges: Brazil's military dictatorship ended in 1985. Democracy returned. Slowly, painfully. And with democracy came something else: truth. In the 1990s and 2000s, Brazil began confronting its past. Former military officers gave testimonies. Secret files were opened. Truth commissions were formed. And the truth about Stuart Angel emerged. He was tortured to death in June 1971 at a clandestine detention center in Petrópolis, Rio de Janeiro state. His body was dumped in the ocean, never recovered. Official confirmation came in 2013, 42 years after his death. And Zuzu, 2013. The investigation is reopened in 2013. Decades after her death, Brazil's federal police reopened the investigation into Zuzu Angel's accident. They reviewed the evidence, interviewed witnesses, examined military archives. In 2015, they issued a conclusion: Zuzu Angel was murdered. Her death was not an accident. It was an assassination ordered by agents of the military dictatorship to silence her, to stop her international campaign, to end her denunciations. The report named specific military officers involved in the operation. Most were dead by then. No one was ever prosecuted. But the truth, official, documented truth, was finally acknowledged. Zuzu Angel was killed by the Brazilian state. The legacy: Zuzu Angel is remembered today as a fashion icon. Museums display her designs. Biographies tell her story. A film was made about her life. In 2006, 30 years after her death, the Brazilian government officially apologized to her family, acknowledged the murder, acknowledged the cover-up. Her name is on memorials to victims of the dictatorship. Stuart's name is there too. But here's the thing about legacy: Zuzu didn't want to be remembered as a victim. She wanted justice. She wanted her son's body returned. She wanted the people who killed him held accountable. She didn't get any of that in her lifetime. She got murdered instead. So when we remember Zuzu Angel, and we should remember her, we should remember not just the designer, but the fighter, the mother who refused to be silent, who risked everything and lost everything demanding truth. There's no mystery here. Federal investigators concluded in 2015, Zuzu Angel was murdered by the dictatorship. But let's talk about the how and the why. The how, forced off the road based on witness testimonies that emerged years later. A military vehicle, likely unmarked, followed Zuzu's Beetle on the night of April 14, 1976. On the elevated highway, the vehicle forced her car off the road. Her Beetle went over the edge. Crashed. She died. The military vehicle left the scene. Police, many of whom were complicit or intimidated by the regime, ruled it an accident. This was the dictatorship's pattern: make dissidents disappear, make deaths look accidental, deny everything. The why she was too effective. Zuzu Angel had done what the dictatorship feared most. She internationalized Brazil's human rights abuses. She wasn't just a grieving mother. She was a celebrity, with access, with credibility. When she spoke to American journalists, they listened. When she showed her designs with coded messages, the international fashion world paid attention. She was making Brazil look bad, and the regime, obsessed with image, with control, couldn't tolerate it. Killing her was a calculation. Make it look like an accident. Avoid international scandal. Silence her permanently. And it worked for decades. Until it didn't. The broader context: mothers of the disappeared Zuzu Angel wasn't the only mother searching for a disappeared child. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of families were in the same position. Children arrested, tortured, killed. Bodies never returned. Most of those mothers didn't have Zuzu's platform, didn't have international connections, didn't have the ability to fight publicly. They suffered in silence. Zuzu fought for all of them, and she paid for it. The unanswered questions: where is Stuart Angel's body? Why were the military officers named in the 2015 report never prosecuted? How many other accidents during the dictatorship were actually assassinations? What happened to the documents that would prove the full chain of command in Zuzu's murder? Has Brazil fully reckoned with this period? That last question matters most, Because Brazil's dictatorship ended in 1985, but accountability? Still incomplete. We're here. I'm looking at Rio tonight. The elevated highways, the lights, the ocean in the distance. Somewhere out there off one of these roads, Zuzu Angel died. Or was killed. She spent 5 years fighting. 5 years demanding justice for her son. 5 years refusing to be silent even when silence would have saved her. And they killed her for it. Made it look like an accident. Buried her, moved on. For decades, they got away with it. But here's what the dictatorship didn't understand. You can kill a person, but you can't kill what they stood for. Zuzu Angel wanted truth, wanted justice, wanted her son's body returned. She didn't get those things. But the fight she started, the international pressure, the documentation, the refusal to forget, that fight continued. Other mothers joined it. Activists joined it. Lawyers joined it. And when democracy came slowly, painfully, that fight turned into truth commissions, into investigations, into official acknowledgments, into the 2015 report that said, Zuzu Angel was murdered by the state. It took 39 years, but the truth came. Stuart's body was never found. Zuzu's killers were never prosecuted. Full justice, the kind she deserved, the kind she fought for, never arrived. But her story is told. In museums, in films, in fashion schools, in human rights organizations, and in cabs like this one, where a driver tells a passenger about a woman who refused to be silent. Even when silence was survival, the meter's off. And somewhere tonight in a museum in Sao Paulo, in a memorial in Rio, Zuzu Angel's designs are displayed. Beautiful, elegant, coated with messages of defiance. Angels with broken wings, birds in cages. A mother's grief turned into art, and art turned into resistance. That's the legacy. There's an ancient truth about mothers and children, that the bond is sacred, unbreakable, that a mother's love doesn't end at death, that a mother will search, will fight, will refuse to rest until she finds her child. Zuzu Angel embodied that truth. Stuart was gone. She knew it. Somewhere deep, she knew, but she couldn't rest, couldn't stop, couldn't be silent, because silence felt like abandonment, and abandoning Stuart even in death was impossible. There's a principle woven into existence, that speaking truth to power is sacred, that standing for justice even at personal cost is one of the highest callings. Zuzu Angel had everything to lose. Her career, her safety, her life. She lost all of it. But she gained something too, integrity. Legacy, the knowledge that she fought. Ancient wisdom tells us that those who hunger for justice will be satisfied. Zuzu didn't see that satisfaction in her lifetime. She died on an overpass, murdered by the state she was denouncing. But the satisfaction came. The 2015 report, the official acknowledgement, the memorials, the films, the fact that we're telling her story right now. I think about what she said in 1974, if something happens to me, it won't be an accident. She knew they would kill her, and she kept fighting anyway. That's not recklessness. That's faith. Faith that truth matters more than safety, that justice is worth dying for, that a mother's love transcends even death. Ancient wisdom warns the powerful, that those who shed innocent blood will be held accountable. That oppression cannot hide forever, that truth outlasts lies. The military regime that killed Zuzu Angel is gone. The dictatorship ended in 1985. The officers who ordered her death, most are dead themselves now. But the truth survived, and that truth documented, official, undeniable, is its own kind of justice. Incomplete. Delayed, imperfect, but real. Hey, thanks for taking this ride with me tonight. This one's different from the others. Not a mystery, not a whodunit, just a story that needed to be told. About a mother, a designer, a fighter, who refused to let her son be erased, and who paid the ultimate price for that refusal. If Zuzu Angel's story moved you, if her courage inspires you, if you're grateful her truth was finally acknowledged, if you think Brazil's dictatorship victims deserve more, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories like this. Stories that honor the people who fought when fighting was dangerous. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think. About Zuzu. About Stuart. About dictatorships and mothers and the long road to justice. I read everyone. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone who's fighting for truth, someone who refuses to be silenced, share this with them. Zuzu Angel's designs are in museums now, but her real legacy isn't fashion. It's courage. The courage to speak when everyone says stay quiet. The courage to fight when fighting seems hopeless. The courage to love so fiercely that even death can't stop you. That's the end of our list. 8 cases, 8 rides, 8 stories Brazil tried to forget. But we remembered, and that matters. Until next time, stay brave, stay loud, and remember, some silences are too dangerous to keep.